What Happens in the Woods is a true crime podcast. We discuss events that are often violent in nature. Listeners' discretion is advised.
Welcome, friends. We have made it to episode 9 of our second season. I feel like time is just going way too fast, but also very slow. It's very weird. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay. So there's one more episode after this. The end is near, but...
Oh,
stop it. But we will be starting What the Fuck Wednesdays in February. Then season 3... What do you mean, oh no?
Oh, yay!
Do you not like What the Fucks?
No, sorry.
I think we'd have like a mini revolt on our hands if we didn't do What the Fucks. Yeah. So, WTF Wednesdays in February, then season 3 begins April 2nd. So, if you didn't know, now
Just
you know.
Kidding, April Fools! Oh, no.
Yeah, no. You may have noticed already, this intro is very basic today. We're kind of going back to our roots a little bit. And that is because I have to run the show for this episode. So I'm recording, I'm editing, I'm going to be posting. It's all me. Yeah. Bryce is in California for a little bit. So.
Yay, California.
Yeah. Eating all the in and out that he can possibly dream of. You've already had it today, haven't you?
No, I haven't. Actually, no.
I'm sure that's what's for dinner.
I can't confirm nor deny these allegations.
Yeah, don't impugn yourself. It's fine.
There was Starbread for breakfast, though.
I hate you. I hate you. That's just not fair. I actually looked up recipes. I need to start making it, but yeast and I are not friends.
No.
So, yeah.
Oil and water.
Yeah, for sure. I have an update update/announcement, but do you have any updates for us, Bryce?
Australia in the lead still.
Yeah, but Germany came out of nowhere and is following right after.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So, hi, Germany.
Hello.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay. My update is that we have merch. We have merchandise, and it's so weird to say that. I feel so pretentious. I mentioned it briefly on our bonus episode, and if you follow us on social media, you're going to start seeing some posts like with the info and, what's available. The link's going to be in our bio. The info, will be in the episode description as well as the link on our website. So it's going to be out there. A few people asked if we would do it, and I was like, yeah, I don't know. Why? Okay, why not? Buy it, don't buy it. I'm not forcing, I'm not pushing this. But if you're interested, it's there.
It'll be in our, we actually, we got fancy and we have a link tree on our Instagram now. So we can do multiple things on there. So it'll be in the link tree in our bio on Instagram.
I will also put out there will be like a discount code when I start posting on social media about this. So you can use a discount code to buy something if you want. Everything will come out eventually. It's not the most pressing thing to me at this time. So I've just kind of been like, yeah, it's there. It's ready to go whenever we put it out there. So be on the lookout. It's there. You might want some. You might not. It's all good.
Yay.
All right. So enough chit chat. Let's get into this case. We are here to talk about the murder of Carrie Love in 1986. And there's also going to be some information at the end that I'll talk about that kind of links to this. It's a disappearance of a young woman from about that same time that is actually linked to Carrie's killer. Unsolved, from Seattle. Very sad. And if anybody has any info, I'll give some details about that at the end. Carrie was a bright young woman. She should have had a great long life ahead of her. She was only 20 years old when she was murdered.
Oh.
Yeah. She was born March 3rd, 1966 to William and Connie Eckert. Her sister was born a few years after, and then her parents divorced when she was 5. So she didn't really grow up knowing her dad very well. After they divorced, her mom remarried, and she was very close to her stepfather, Jim Love. And she eventually took his name, basically unofficially, started using it at school, started using it legally without legally having it changed. So she was a really good student. She was very involved in extracurricular activities, great at math. I'm very jealous already. She eventually joined the Oregon National Guard. She was learning how to track weather patterns. And just before her death, for some reason, she had left a really good paying job using those skills where she observed weather from the Sexton Summit in the Washington Cascade Mountains.
Oh.
I do understand, I get it. The job is really isolated. So basically she was up there for herself, by herself for 7 days a week looking at the weather. The only time, you know what I mean? Suck. Yeah, it would. So for somebody, for some people, they'd be like, yeah, sign me up for that. I don't give a shit how often I see people or socialize. But for others, that would be hell. That would be the worst thing possible. And
I could do it, but that would suck for me. I like to be social.
I don't think that I could do it consistently. I think I could do it for maybe 6 months.
Yeah.
And then, by the end of the 6 months, I'd be like, get me the hell out of here. So I get it. I get why she wanted to change. From what I can tell with her personality and how she was described, I can just imagine that she was just very lonely out there. So I get it. So she sets herself up as a roommate with a friend who was living in Seattle at the time, and she begins looking for a new job. She soon landed the role of secretary, and she ended up becoming she ran the office, essentially, in a very short period of time. And this was a job for Northern Star Incorporated. It's a trunking company.
Okay.
So this is where she was working when she was murdered. The job did not pay that well, but as a perk, the owner, who is named Jesse Pratt, he set Carrie up in an apartment off Military Road. Not exactly the best area for a young woman to be alone. Sadly, it was not where she lived that ended up, being a link to her murder. It was while on a business trip from Seattle to LA that Carrie was murdered.
Oh.
Yeah. So while driving on U.S. Route 97 near Chemult, Oregon, this is on June 17th, 1986, a husband and wife pull off the road after the husband sees what he thinks is a body just off the side on the highway.
Okay.
Right? It's never a good, it's never good. So the husband...
Honey, I think that's a body. Let's stop.
Well, but what are you going to do? You know what I mean? You're on the side of the highway. It's the middle of Oregon. There's not a whole lot of shit around. This is 1986. There's no cell phones.
Busy either, yeah.
No, 97 is not busy, and there's no cell phones. There's no, So what are you going to do? Yeah. You're going to get out and investigate. So he does.
I'm going to mind my own fucking business.
I bet you would.
I've seen enough horror movies. The minorities don't end up well.
Okay. I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. No. So the husband, gets out of the truck. He's relieved when he finds it's just a sleeping bag that he's like, oh, okay, somebody, it fell out of somebody's back of somebody's truck or whatever, got left there. He also sees that there's a pillowcase nearby. And the sleeping bag looks like it's a really nice sleeping bag. So he's like, okay, well, you snooze, you lose. I'm taking it. And he shoves it in the back of his truck. They get on their way. They finish their trip. They're going to Klamath Falls to visit the husband's elderly mother. And they're going to take her out to dinner. That's the plan of the trip. They're going to spend the night and then go home.
Yeah.
So when they get to their destination, he finally takes a good look at the sleeping bag, and he notices it's not as nice looking as what it had first appeared on the side of the road.
What? Highway sleeping bags aren't as nice as they appear?
Apparently not. Apparently,
that would have been a treasure. I just know it.
Well, it is a treasure because it becomes good evidence. There's blood all over it, and there's blood on the pillowcase, and there's some items. So when the husband opens up the pillowcase, a purse falls out, a wallet, some hair curlers, a pill bottle with Carrie's name on it, and some tennis shoes. So instead of dinner, the three of them head to the state trooper station, and that's where they spend their evening.
Sweet.
Yeah. So,
and how do you want to go to the sheriff's station?
I would prefer not to, if that can be avoided.
On our next date night. Come on.
I'm going to politely decline.
You're ruining this for me. Surprise.
Oh, yeah, no. Hell to the no.
No?
No,
right.
thank
Fine.
you. No, thank you.
That would have been a romantic gesture with our podcast at all.
No.
Okay. All right.
I don't want to go to not unless somebody's going to give me a tour of.
I'll find something else.
Okay, thanks.
That's fine.
Okay. Can I get back on track?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So troopers are, taking the statement from the husband, and they start to go through the purse. They find a Washington State ID and military ID, both for Carrie Love, because she is in the reserve. She's in the National Guard Reserve.
The National Guard.
Yep. So there's no cash. There is, however, a checkbook and some papers that have information of a business that's in Seattle. One of the weirder things found is some green paper towels that have duct tape on them. And troopers don't know exactly what they have with all these things, but shit cannot be good when you find used duct tape. It can't. It isn't. So meanwhile, while this is going on, police start calling the family while they're getting more information from the husband and wife. They start calling the family and any phone numbers they found on pieces of paper in Carrie's purse. The first number they try is for the Seattle business, which is Northern Star, and they get an answering machine. Then they call a number that gets them to Carrie's former roommate, Kelly. She is told that Carrie's purse has been found and asked if she has any info on where Carrie might be so that they can return it to her. Because at this time, they think it's just a piece of lost personal effects. They learn from Kelly that the pills in the purse, as they're talking to her, is because Carrie was being treated for chlamydia. Keep a hold of that information.
Okay.
The roommate gives them details that Carrie left with her boss on June 16th for a business trip to California. She doesn't have anything good to say about Carrie's boss.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, the plan apparently was that Carrie was supposed to be staying with her dad for a couple of days in L.A. Then she was going to be flying home because that weekend she was due to be at the National Guard for drill service.
Okay.
Not drill service. I said that wrong.
I don't know. She had to report for duty.
Yeah. I guess that would be a better way of saying it. It was her weekend for that. So, and this was like a trip that Carrie had been looking forward to because she was going to be visiting her dad, who she doesn't get to see very often. So, a little
trip
odd.
to LA.
Yeah. Little odd that, her purse goes missing. Yeah. So the roommate Kelly gives the number for Carrie's father to the trooper, and he makes that call. Her dad says he is very concerned at this point because he hasn't heard from Carrie. He expected her to be at his house by then. He says if he hears from her, he will give the trooper a call back, but he has not had a phone call from her since, Monday the 16th when she called before they left. The trooper then gets a call from a young man named Cody who claims he is Carrie's boyfriend. And he also claims that he's very worried about Carrie. Carrie was supposed to call him and let him know when her return flight was back to Seattle. And she never did. And he also didn't have anything good to say about her boss, Jesse Pratt.
Oh.
Yeah.
I see a suspect emerging.
Very much so. Nobody's quite sure, at that point what's happened to Carrie. the troopers aren't trying to like raise the alarm, but it's like, it's very quickly realized that obviously something bad has happened. And with all of these people coming forward and saying, you know, how suspicious they are of Pratt and how like their interactions with him have been and just their vibe from him, obviously they are alarmed. Backup is called in from the state police, from an officer that specializes in homicide and investigations. They quickly start getting searches together. And they start in the area where the sleeping bag and the pillowcase were found, which doesn't produce any leads. They literally are searching just miles of road along the highway where there's just nothing. These roads are barely driven. So they're just walking these roads for miles, not finding anything. And then they kind of think of like things in the area of like businesses or anything that might be in the area. And they realize that there's like an unofficial truck stop area. It's pretty large, but it's out of the way from like any of the main roads. It's eventually going to become a truck stop, like officially paved rest stop. But it's not quite there yet. Unfortunately, this is where Carrie Love's body is found. Buried deep in a pile of rock and gravel along the tree line of a cleared parking area. Most visible was a hand, but as they came closer, they saw her naked torso and both feet. So at 3:47 p.m. on June 18th, the area was roped off and the crime scene was worked. They take samples of fuzz and fibers found near her body. And when the medical examiner starts looking over the scene and the body was uncovered, they found what looked like tire marks on her arm and upper body. They also noticed that her head was crushed. The marks from the tires look burnt in, like they had been made from the tire wall running along the side of the body. And they can recognize that it's going from right to left. They also find many puncture wounds, like very small puncture wounds across her chest and her spine. The ME described them as looking like ice pick wounds. So not nice. There were no murder weapons that were found near the body or at the scene, and they were picking up everything. They were picking up and makeshift little sieves. They were trying to find any and everything that could be possible evidence, because it's a very populated area with traffic from trucks coming and going. So they had no idea how much could be there or had been moved. Yeah. So she was then moved to the local mortuary home in Klamath Falls for an autopsy. There wasn't an official coroner's area that they could go to. So it was at a local mortuary home. Okay. Her autopsy revealed that she had been asphyxiated, and they found red cotton fibers under her fingernails. There was also seminal fluid taken from her body, confirming that sexual intercourse had taken place. Of course, they couldn't really confirm whether it was rape, consensual or non-consensual. Yeah. But it had happened. They found that with her skull being crushed, Carrie also had broken ribs, a broken neck, and they also could match the duct tape eventually found in the sleeping bag, the duct tape that had been rolled up with paper towels. There was residue left on her body from that tape. They found residue. So eventually they realized that it was from the duct tape that they found. Her entire head had been wrapped in paper towels and tape layered over and over again, basically asphyxiating her. So the official cause of death was found after a 9-hour autopsy, and that is, quote, stab wounds to heart and great vessels, end quote. It was believed the broken bones and all the injuries that, her skull crushed, her ribs, all of that, that was done post-mortem. Okay. So investigators again called Northern Star Inc. on the morning of the 19th. This time they talked to another secretary who had only been on the job for a few days. She confirms that Carrie worked for that business and that she had left with the owner, Jesse Pratt, on a trip that Monday going to L.A., to supposedly expand the business. So the plan was that he was going to take down loads of seafood to LA and bring up produce back to Washington. And he was opening up a small office down there. He, on this trip, was supposed to be in Fresno. He was supposed to pick up a load of potatoes, take them to LA. And then, he had other things that he was supposed to be doing before coming home. So when she's asked if she's heard from Pratt, she tells investigators he's been in touch. Not a word of Carrie, didn't mention her at all. He's finished his business in LA. He had the potatoes delivered. She gives a recall of the day leading up to their departure from the office that, in the afternoon. So she says Carrie was dropped off with her luggage that morning by her boyfriend, Cody. They were expecting to get a start on the trip by noon. That didn't go as planned because the other driver for the company was late in returning the truck to Jesse. Jesse had a fucking bitch fit and went off on the driver because then the truck was going to need to be refueled and it was 3 p.m. and, they wasted the day. In the end, it was decided that they had enough gas because it was an empty load. They weren't carrying anything, that they could make it to Oregon where the gas was cheaper, and that, Carrie and Jesse were off soon after that. After learning the state troopers had found her purse and had no idea of her location, Pratt had called and the secretary is like, hey, can I talk to Carrie? Pratt said he didn't have Carrie with him at all. And then he claims that she decided to fly down from Seattle. That he had dropped her off at a bar near the airport, which later on became not just a bar, but a strip club. And and that she just decided she didn't want to drive down with him. So he was going to take her to that. She was going to find her way to the airport. And he says he doesn't know where she is.
Oh.
So his story is going to change a few times over the next few days. And authorities, like I said, quickly isolated him as the best and only suspect in her disappearance and murder, just because he couldn't keep his facts straight. Not even when the evidence comes back, it's just a confirmation. It's just based off of him being a dumbass and not being able to keep his story straight.
Yeah.
So a little info on Jesse Pratt. He was born in Texas on July 3rd, 1944, but he claimed to everyone he was born on the 4th of July, just for the way it sounded. His dad was a soldier. What I could find research-wise, he died during World War II in Germany, but there's an account of he just didn't come home, or there's also an account that he went missing. So I'm not sure if he was missing in action or if they do actually have a confirmed death.
Okay.
But Jesse, made up stories of how much of a war hero his dad was. Not to say that he wasn't a hero, just that he wasn't the decorated hero that Jesse made him out to be. And again, it was just something to brag about.
Yeah.
His mom went on to remarry several times after that. I found an account that claimed 4 times. So that would make 5 marriages.
Okay.
Yeah. There would be 2 younger sisters that he did not grow up with that came out of those marriages.
Yeah.
Jesse claimed that he was sexually abused by 1 or more of his stepfathers and also a family friend. There's no confirmation that any of that is true in the research.
Yeah.
It would account for his actions later in life if that were true. But honestly, when you think about that, not every monster has a horrible story.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just do the things that they do for unknown reasons. It's not because they were treated poorly or, abuse was done to them. There are people who just do these things for unknown reasons.
Yeah.
Don't want to say that he was abused because I can't confirm it. He claims that he was. There are also accounts that Jesse's mom was an alcoholic. And again, I can't confirm that. Not sure if there was abuse there. I want to say it's more than likely she was an alcoholic. Sure. Given the time period, sure. Yeah. And there again, that leads to probably neglect, maybe some abuse. And there again, maybe he was abused sexually by some of these people. There's no way of knowing for sure.
Yeah.
So Pratt never finished high school. He seemed very street smart, though. He's very charismatic. He is described as a very rough, large, and tall man. He looks like some kind of Hell's Angel. He's very scruffy looking with a big old pot belly. Yeah. He's not really into grooming, even by the take into account the standards of the 70s and the early 80s. He's still a sweaty, scruffy looking man.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he was never without a woman. And he was married multiple times himself. He had girlfriends all the time. Women would come back to him. His first wife, it was said that they were, married and then divorced, and she came back to him like 4 or 5 times for whatever reason. He seemed to me that he chose relationships that he could manipulate by playing into a woman's insecurities. So he actually wasn't necessarily looking for a relationship where, his partner was, classically beautiful or anything like that. It was more of what could he get out of it and how could he mentally control this person who had insecurities so that he could be in charge and be in control.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was also very physically abusive in every relationship he had. He even managed to get some of his girlfriends and a wife to become sex workers for him in a side gig that he ran that was named Double Jack Escort Service. I don't know how the fuck you get your wife to be a sex worker for your side gig.
Yeah, I don't know either.
That is like the ultimate brainwashing manipulation.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me, but it happened. Yeah. Pratt really liked flashy gold jewelry, fast cars, and he liked being in the company of women. And he had a very interesting personality. While living in Alaska, he was working up there trying to make some money. And of course, that is at that time, 70s, 80s, that's like prime time for sex workers up there. He ended up serving time for stealing and cashing a government check. So then he had to leave and he came down to Washington. He started setting up a trucking business. That had been like his dream to run a trucking business. Problem was he had no truck.
Wow. Right. That's a big problem.
That's a big problem, and it's an expensive problem. He got some money, called a girlfriend in Alaska, borrowed some money. He was saying that he was going to buy a truck, but then he ended up borrowing a truck from his sister and her husband and doing God knows what with the money that he took from the girlfriend. He just, whatever he could do to wheel and deal. So eventually his sister was like, either buy the damn truck from us or give it back. You can't just have it. And he intentionally got into a bad wreck with the truck out of spite, so bad that it had to be totaled. I believe that they filed a lawsuit in regards to it, but I can't find concrete information on how that played out. His sister, though, did everything she possibly could to keep their address and their location a secret so that Pratt couldn't find them. She was so scared of him that she would run her children through drills that if anybody came onto their property or, they noticed anybody like that was trying to talk to them, like what they would do in the situation. She was that scared of him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk more about our trucker friend, Jesse Pratt, and why police had him pegged early on as the asshole responsible for Carrie Love's murder. In 1980, Pratt decided it would be a good idea to kidnap a former girlfriend who, in my research, was named Thelma to keep her identity safe. So he showed up at her new job in Tukwila, Washington, and ended up driving her down to Oregon. He had put up feelers through his connections in the correction system and hired an inmate from the Consumnes Correctional Facility in Elk Grove, California. This guy was due to be released at the end of the month, and he sent him a letter saying, if you come up to Seattle, I'll pay you $3,000 to beat up a guy. So he used his plane ticket that, you're given when you were released. On August 3rd, David Whaley flew up to Seattle. Pratt picked him up, took him back to his apartment. They were living he was living in Puyallup at the time. Then on August 5th, the two showed up with a gun to L.A. Barnes Truck Brokerage. They ordered everybody there into a back office where they eventually tied up and gagged 4 people. And this was all at gunpoint. They took Pratt's ex-girlfriend, Thelma, hostage. And in her statement, she claimed she was told to smile and act normal as they were leaving the building. They got into a blue station wagon, drove to a truck stop. She and Pratt got into another car. the guy David, who was the inmate, I don't know when he ever got his $3,000 or if he ever did, but he ended up following them down in the station wagon to Oregon. From there, they got to Eugene. They stayed at a motel for a couple of nights in 2 different rooms. Thelma was repeatedly beaten and raped by both men during the trip. And her statement gives accounts of how Pratt was mentally abusive, railroading her into thinking that she needed mental help. And he also talked about how he wanted to marry her in Reno, but then he claimed he wanted her to work as an escort for her service. And the reason they broke up was because she kept saying, no, I won't do that. I don't understand. I love you. How would you, if you love me, why do you want me to do that? Why would you want me to be with another man? And he kept saying, it doesn't matter. Just do it. And he would be like, you'd be set up in, this great apartment, and you could be particular about who you go out with, and just bullshit stories. And she was like, no, I have no interest in that. And he wouldn't take no for an answer. And that's why she ended up leaving. So she manages to get away when she was able to go to the restroom in the hotel's restaurant on her own. He couldn't go in with her. Obviously, it was busy. So he was right at the door, but she managed to pass a business card to a mother and her daughter and whisper to them that she was being held in room 129 against her will, and to contact the police and authorities for her.
Smart girl.
Very smart. Pratt, bangs on the door and he's like, what's taking so long? And she rushes out. But she, she's scared that he hurt her, but he doesn't do anything about it. So she's just, waiting at that point for the mom, hopefully, to do what she asked her to do. So they get back to the room, and after a while, Thelma tells Pratt that she feels sick and that she needed some medicine. So they go back down to the lobby. They're going to get some aspirin and some Rolaids when police walk up with their guns drawn and they arrest Jesse Pratt. So he's taken to the local police station, where he gives a very different view of the incidents leading up to that point. Pratt claims that Thelma knew she could leave at any time. He claims that he went into her business, her place of business, with a gun because he knew that her new boss carried a weapon, and he didn't want anybody to get hurt, so they were prepared in case he drew his weapon. He also claimed he just wanted to talk because, quote, the love between her and me had to be brought out so we knew what was going to happen, end quote. If there's ever a statement that I've read that never makes any sense, that would be it. I don't know what the fuck that even means. He won't admit to raping her. He insists that it was consensual. He says that nobody raped her, meaning that the other gentleman did not either. Nevertheless, he is brought to trial in Washington on kidnapping and weapon charges. He is sentenced to 10 years at Washington State Pen in Walla Walla. That was March of 1981. He is released just 3 years and 3 months later, 1984.
Okay.
What pisses me off is the rape charges were never brought forward because that happened in Oregon. They were not pursued by the county there. So it wasn't something that Washington could, bring charges against because it didn't happen in Washington. So the trial in Washington was based only on the kidnapping because that's where it happened, and the weapons charge because that's where he held up the people. The rape was never, those charges were never brought against him.
Oh.
Yeah.
Technicalities.
Basically, yeah. I also can't find any information on the David Whaley guy, if he was caught too, if he was arrested with all of this, if he escaped because he wasn't there. I don't know. He had his own room that he was like coming back and forth into their room. He may have seen all of this go down and got out. I don't know. It's kind of frustrating because here's this criminal who just was released and within days already committing crimes, and God only knows what happened to him. After his release, Pratt managed to get money together to put a down payment on an older 1976 Kenworth truck. He rented some hauling trailers, like refrigerated trailers. He set up offices on Boeing Field, nothing fancy, no like maintenance area or covered building for storage, nothing, just an office. Independent truckers who he got to start working for him were quickly finding that it cost them more money to do business with Northern Star than they were making. There were a lot of times when these truck drivers would show up expecting to get a haul to deliver to another place to get paid. And they would be told there was nothing to pick up, or it hadn't been set up, or they didn't even know what the hell they were talking about.
Yeah.
So they were spending money and time and gas and maintenance to drive places, only to end up being out that money and not having anything to deliver.
Oh.
The trucking business was bleeding money, while the escort service had the profits most of the time. Yeah. So most of the checks written from the trucking business bounced when they were people tried to cash them, and then they would be substituted for double jack checks. So double jack being the escort service.
Yeah.
There was also a little side business of some cocaine that was, being done. That also brought in a tidy sum that kept Pratt in flashy cars and, the heavy gold jewelry to his heart's content. I also read that none of these businesses, any business that he tried to start, they weren't registered. He didn't have licenses for them. He didn't pay any of his bills. It was just a shit show in general.
Yeah.
So money obviously was an issue. The rent on the office at Boeing Field was hardly paid. The truck and the trailers hadn't been paid on in months. No one pushed the issue with him, though, because Pratt was intimidating and he put a lot of fear in a lot of people. He seemed to have connections to just about any and everything that would be enough to keep people from harassing him. And he had no qualms about threatening violence to anybody who questioned him.
Yeah.
One day, Pratt was at a diner where he spotted Carrie Love and her roommate, Kelly. They were eating and chatting, and he managed to overhear a conversation that Carrie was on the hunt for a job in the area. He saw the opportunity to just slide right into the combo, and he offered Carrie a job as his secretary. And for whatever reason, she took it. She accepted it. Yeah. She thought, here's my good luck. I need a job. I've just spent months on this lonely mountain range, and what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, she probably just thought right place, right time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just six short weeks later, she was found killed in a pile of broken rock, short distance from the highway where she had been traveling down to see her dad in California. So if you haven't guessed it by now, Jesse Pratt is the man believed responsible for Carrie Love's murder. Authorities, like I said, were very quick on his bullshit when they started questioning people who knew him. Investigators get to the Northern Star office on June 19th to interview the secretary they had spoken to the day prior, when who should call but Jesse Pratt himself. And they're sitting there, the two sheriff's officers are sitting there, and they're just kind of letting the secretary talk. They don't interrupt. They can hear the entire conversation clearly being, what's being said between the two. And she tells Pratt the police are there because Carrie was missing, because, they hadn't revealed any more information at that time. And his answer to her was to cooperate, and that because of what was going on with Carrie, he would get a load where he was and he would make it back home. So he was changing his plans.
Yeah.
He had told the secretary, and in turn, she had told the state troopers the day prior that he had already been to LA and that he had acquired the produce that he was scheduled to get. But the day that they're in the office with her, he claims that never happened. He claims he's calling from Dunnigan, California. That is north. That is not south. Yeah, and the secretary,
very much north.
Right. The secretary never noticed the lie, but the police sure did. So they hang out after, she hangs up the phone with him. And a couple hours later, they're still there talking to her when he calls back again. And he's asking for an update on Carrie. And she, is talking to him a little bit. And they notice that she's babying him. Like she's, oh, sweetie, oh, honey. And they think it's weird. And then Pratt asks to speak to one of the officers. So the officer gets on the line, and Pratt voluntarily starts talking about his itinerary. He's not even asked. He just starts going off about how he's been here, and so from this place is going to recognize him, and, giving them a detailed itinerary. They haven't asked him for it. He's already trying to
cover his tracks.
Exactly. So the officer tells him, he just listens, lets him, talk his shit out. The officer tells him that when he gets back to Washington, they need to speak with him. He needs to, come down to the sheriff's office. Then they leave there. They speak with the driver who had been late in dropping off the Kenworth truck off that Monday. So, that Pratt and Carrie could get on the road to California.
Yeah.
Apparently, the truck's registration was a year out of date, and the driver was stopped at the weigh scales in Everett, Washington. He was coming down from Canada. He said he got a ticket. So when he finally got to the office that Monday, they got into an argument because he handed over the ticket and he was like, I'm not paying this shit. And then Pratt says, well, fine. They argue about it, but he takes it. And then the driver says, and you owe me $400. Pratt apparently told him, here, okay, Carrie, write him a check for $400. And she wouldn't do it because she knew there wasn't $400 in the account. Yeah. He's telling the officers that he ended up getting a check from the escort service, which eventually that bounced too. So he's out $400. He's now got a ticket on him. And Jesse had the nerve, Jesse Pratt had the nerve to be pissed off at him.
Of course.
Right. It's never your fault. So
never.
The driver also confirms, though, that when he dropped off that truck, there was a green sleeping bag in the back, pillowcase that actually he had a match to at his house because it was from his house, paper towels that were green, and duct tape that all were in the sleeper compartment of that truck.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So that night, Pratt was supposed to be in Dunnigan, California. He's pulled over that night by Arizona Highway Patrol in regards to an attempt to locate bulletin that the Oregon State Troopers put out for his Kenworth truck.
Uh-oh.
Right. You didn't make it from California, Northern California, to Arizona in, I don't know, let's say 8 hours. You didn't do it. There's no way.
Yeah. You did. You violated hours of service.
Right. When they get, him pulled over, Pratt's not surprised. They gave him citations for not having the proper license to be driving a truck that size. He also did not have the medical card that was required of truckers to have. And the patrolman told Pratt he was wanted for questioning in connection to the death of Carrie Love. And the response that he got was, quote, I know it. That's all you got to say. So he was read his rights. The truck was impounded and both were on their way to the local jail.
And this was in Arizona?
This is in Arizona.
Okay.
So the patrolman asked Pratt, hey, what's the story? What's going on? And Pratt has a new story that accounts for his whereabouts and his timeline. And in doing so, he completely contradicts his earlier statements the secretary had given and then he himself had given. So he says in this new, turn of events that they went back to his apartment where she wanted to make sweet love, quote unquote. But they didn't end up making love there. They ended up going to the truck and making love in the sleeper compartment.
Right.
Why the hell would anybody want to go from an apartment with a bed to the back of a truck to have sex?
I don't know. Excitement? I don't know.
I don't buy it. I get it if like you're in the middle of it and in the moment you're like, okay, well, we got to get on the road, and then the moment hits you again and you're like, okay, well, we're here. Well, but you're really going to leave a place where there's a perfectly good bed first? Like if the moment hits you, you're not trying to move locations.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just, you're hilarious with your sweet lovin'. I call bullshit from that. I don't even know how you look a man straight in the eye when he says that she wanted some sweet lovin' and we moved to the truck.
Maybe.
I guess. Whatever. So Pratt says that this is when she changed her mind and that he dropped her off at the bar near the airport. And again, that bar turned into be a strip club. So
she didn't want the sweet lovin'.
Apparently, I don't know. So when asked, okay, well, what's her flight info? She was supposed to return. Do you have any of that information? You were paying for her. You had claimed that you were paying for her to fly out. And this is a business trip. So she was flying out. You don't have the information? He says, no, I have no idea. I don't know what company she was flying with. I don't know, what the flight time was. I don't even know when she's supposed to be home. No idea. So after getting the call that Pratt was in custody in Arizona, King County sheriffs flew down with a warrant to charge Jesse Pratt with aggravated murder. This was the morning of June 20th. So they actually, she was murdered on the 16th and they had him in custody by the 20th. So
he's not a fucking genius. That's why.
No, he's really not. But also, when has that ever stopped shit from going months and months before, So I have to say, not only good work because they were relentless in how they searched and what they were doing, but they also made it known, and they, the entities that cooperated together between Washington, Oregon, and Arizona, and I'm sure even some people they contacted in California, all of these entities cooperated with each other. And this is what happens when cooperation happens,
Credit where credit is due.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They again read him his rights. This time it's in front of his attorney. So his little sweetheart secretary in Seattle was worried about him and hired an attorney for him. I don't know what's wrong with this woman. She kind of irritated me because she just had no idea that he really could have done this. And she was just working on the assumption that he was completely innocent.
Sure.
Right. So she gets him a lawyer. But the lawyer, is there and they read him his rights again. They arrest him again officially with the King County Sheriff. The lawyer gets him, to agree to a search of the truck, and he gives 2 vials of blood samples, but they are told that he is not going to discuss the murder of Carrie Love. And they're like, fine, we don't need him to.
Nope.
He's already given us so much information. Like there's just already so much information with his contradictory stories. We don't need him to say a goddamn thing.
Mm-hmm.
So while being booked on the charges and being ready to move to Oregon, they take hair samples, and they also notice on his body that he has long scratches on his torso as well as a bruise. He claims that it's from making love to Carrie days before. So
sweet lovin'.
His sweet lovin'. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Searching the truck proved to be a difficult task. So it was clean. It was cleaner than a truck has any right to be. And the authorities had to take their time with the search because of it.
Mm-hmm.
So they ended up bagging the truck and gassing it with like that super glue mixture that kind of the residue will pull out prints from anywhere. It takes some time. You've got to tape everything off, and then you do that, and you've got to let it sit for a long time, and then you've got to let it air out for a long time. So it took about 5 days. They finally got in there, pulled that cab and sleeper compartment apart. They took anything and everything they could find into evidence. The tire treads were also heavily scrutinized and photographed from every angle. An expert in tire design who had formerly worked for Firestone would later confirm that the specific tread print was a match to that of the print left on Carrie Love's body. And, based off that, they were like, yeah, this is just more confirmation that we have the right man.
Shit's just piling up.
Yeah. So on June 25th, Pratt was booked into the Klamath County Jail to await trial. Matches would be confirmed of the fibers found under Carrie's nails to that of a T-shirt that Pratt was wearing while he was arrested. They also found fibers in the truck that were matched to the sleeping bag. The driver who had been late returning the truck confirmed again that he knew of the 2 rolls of that specific type of paper towel. He had purchased them and put them in the truck. The roll of duct tape as well. He had purchased it and put it in the truck. Mm-hmm. And then authorities were able to speak with some people who confirmed that they saw Carrie with Pratt on his trip into Oregon. That they also were able to find some gas receipts for a truck stop in Washington. So even though he had said they were going to go to Oregon to fill up, they didn't. They filled up in Washington. Later on, there was a receipt for a meal and receipt for gas in Oregon that contradicted the accounts that Pratt had given, kicked her out or had left her off at the airport.
Exactly.
Yeah. Later on, he says, well, yeah, she was with me and then I kicked her out. I kicked her out because we argued over money. So, it changed yet again after he was in, right. Yeah. The money that he didn't have. He changed that while he was in custody. So they were quickly and easily, once they just were able to talk to people, they had an accurate timeline just from that. They didn't even need him to talk at all. So all of the evidence was enough to get Pratt convicted. But in case there was any doubt as to the type of the monster that they were dealing with, authorities had witness after witness testify as to his character and his business dealings. So they had ex-girlfriends, ex-wives, his own mother.
You're fucked.
Yeah.
When your mom testifies against you, you're a bad person.
You're a piece of shit. He tried to take the stand and say that he was abused during one of his appeals. And the lies that come out of this man's mouth is amount of lying is unreal.
That's grasping at straws there.
For sure. So in 1988, Pratt was finally found guilty of sexual assault and aggravated murder, and he was actually sentenced to death by lethal injection.
Was that in Oregon?
That's in Oregon.
Oh, okay.
Because she was murdered in Oregon.
All right.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. Just like every other convicted killer that we've discussed, appeals have been filed. At one point, he was moved off of death row after evaluations labeled him as, quote, mentally retarded. The Supreme Court has ruled that a person with limited mental capacity cannot be legally executed.
Okay.
Rightfully so. Honestly. It's just unfortunate that you know when somebody's a bullshitter. And while he might not have been the smartest man, he definitely was a conniving man. And that takes a lot of skills that a mentally retarded person, or as we say now, a person with a disability.
Yeah.
I call bullshit.
There's a huge difference between a person with a disability and being stupid. There's a huge difference.
Right.
He was just stupid.
It was stupidity for sure. Unfortunately, in 1991, he and another inmate who was also on death row were moved into the general population at Oregon State Penitentiary. They will serve life sentences without parole. So he's still not going anywhere, but he will not be executed. Yeah. He's still alive and well, and he's serving his sentence. He's 86 years old. He'll be 87 this year. Yeah. Very, very interesting case.
Getting his sweet loving in there.
God only knows. Do you think he's made somebody his bitch, or is he somebody's bitch?
Well, if he's 86 now.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Are they going to fuck with the old people?
I really don't give two shits.
I guess not. Yeah. Yeah, he's sitting there. He's sitting there just serving out his life sentence.
Good rot there, but I'm sorry for the Oregon taxpayers.
The thing is, this is, he is convicted of one murder. Like I said, there is actually a missing persons case where Pratt is possibly, he's a person of interest. Mm-hmm. He's not going to admit to anything. And it's again, it's kind of that, who knows what else he has done. There were so many people that came forward during his trial saying that he was abusive, that he made them, work as sex workers for him. Yeah. That, he could have easily killed other women easily. Yeah. Or been responsible for disappearances of other women. You don't just do one thing. There is a lead up. I don't see his lead up, his progression. Yeah. It's not documented. So the missing persons case that is credited, well, I don't want to say credited. He is just a person of interest in that case, is of a missing woman who went missing in 1985. It's May 22nd, 1985. Her name is Virginia Rambus. And like I said, missing person never found. This is just a year before Carrie Love's death, almost exactly. Virginia was supposed to meet up with a friend, and the two were going to go to a party that evening. She was never seen, heard from, found ever. She was just 19 years old.
But he's the person of interest. I mean, does it say how?
Well, he is a person of interest because he lived in the same apartment building as Virginia at the time that she went missing. Like I said, he's not an official suspect. He is just a person of interest. Police were looking into this like as a cold case in 2011 in regards to her disappearance. They kind of reopened and were starting to look at things, and he was known to be in the area at the time. People in the Skyway neighborhood knew Jesse Pratt as, quote, the Candy Man because of his connections to cocaine dealing.
Okay.
Yeah. Given his other crimes in history, I suspect he was also known in the neighborhood for being some kind of pimp or a sexual deviant, and a young, beautiful girl alone would have been too good for him to pass up. So unfortunately, there are no leads. There's no information, and she is a missing persons open cold case to this day. Well, I guess cold case, it's not open.
Yeah, maybe that is his lead up.
Could have been.
I mean, if he's involved.
Yeah, if he is. It's really quite possible. So I was able to find some information on Facebook on a page called Black and Missing, but Not Forgotten. There's also www.blackandmissing.org on Virginia's appearance. She was African American.
Okay.
So I will, of course, link that info into the description. There are actually about 2 or 3 other women who went missing during that time period that could just as easily fit into his, timeline of crimes.
Yeah.
He's not necessarily listed as suspects for any of them, but they are looking at, they also throw in, I swear to God, every missing woman from 1980 to 1995 could have been linked to the Green River Killer or the guy from Spokane. Why am I blanking on his name right
Yates.
now? Yeah, Yates. Yeah.
Is this like the Kevin Bacon?
Yeah. The Kevin Bacon, what?
There's a 6 degrees of separation.
Seven. Yeah. I get what you're talking about. Yeah. So anytime there's a missing young woman, I read they throw out there could have been Green River Killer suspect. It's like the scary thing is it actually could.
Yeah. But like we've discussed, he will never admit to that.
No, he's never going to admit to that. He won't open up to any other charges.
I guess we can only hope for Pratt that he's going to make a deathbed confession or, tell someone something.
It's just very unfortunate because, 1985, that's so long to go without knowing what happened to a person, a daughter, a sister, an aunt, anybody, that's so long without knowing what happened to that person and without being able to bury them and grieve for them properly. That is what these people take away from us.
Yeah.
It's very unfortunate. This is Jesse Pratt, an asshole, if there ever was one. Yeah. I did want to mention, I had mentioned earlier that Carrie was being treated for chlamydia. I forgot to put this in, but sorry, I said pay attention to that, and then I dropped the ball on that one. She and Cody wouldn't talk about some of the shit that Jesse had done. They said something had happened, and then they wouldn't talk to anybody about it. And when people question hey, what was it you were going to tell us? They wouldn't say. It was alluded to in some of my research that Pratt had possibly convinced her to work for his escort service.
Oh.
And that's how she ended up with chlamydia.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just shitty. Very shitty. So we're at the end of episode 9. We've got one more left.
One more.
And it's a hell of a story. We just want to say thank you for listening. Please stay safe. Please stay home. Mask up if you have to go anywhere in public. Join us for our last episode of the season on January 29th. And then get ready for What the Fuck Wednesdays. Because we're coming in hot.
Okay.
I am not messing around with my stories this time. And there will be no Florida.
I was going to say, watch out, Florida.
Nope. No Florida. No, Florida.
All right.
I'm coming for the other states. And I found a lot.
Watch out now.
All right, everybody. Until we meet again, please be kind to one another and stay out of the goddamn woods.
Stay out of the woods.
It's no good. Bye, everybody.
Bye.